What does it mean to truly heal, find meaning, and have a reconnection with your most authentic self?
Yes. Well, I think it's going to be different for every one of us. I think we all are on a mission and we have a different journey that we have to go through and heal from different types of experiences and navigating our own development and evolution. And I think understanding also one big thing that I want to bring always to the table is that we grow and evolve the most from the traumatic experiences, from something stressful, from unpleasant, because that's what builds character and opens up different character traits that we may have. And so again, healing is it's not there's no final destination, right? Healing is a very it flows and goes up and down, and we're facing different experiences. We're facing new experiences every single day that may also create this kind of tension that we need to resolve. But again, not looking at the troubles of life as something that is there to bring us down, but something that will actually help me evolve to a better version of myself because we're always becoming. And this is a beautiful, I think, beautiful way to face the fears, to face the uncertainty and despair sometimes that we go through. Again, working as a licensed clinician, I've seen a lot of people with different sorts of problems, not just trauma as we know it, but also neglect from childhood, medical injuries, and things of that nature that are very different from what we consider to be traumatic. And yet they're very impactful in how we view life and ourselves. But also, those experiences can bring a great gift once we go through it and process it.
So I'll be my most authentic self as much as I can for this interview. So I'm just recently in a breakup right now, and the healing
Mhm.
process is such a, topsy-turvy thing. I guess the first question, and that is, how do you even know that you need to heal from something? Are there markers or indicators in a personality that, again, indicate that
Mhm.
healing needs to happen?
I think first and foremost, we start with how am I feeling in this moment? If your life is great, if you feel like everything satisfies you, you feel content with life, you feel happy, there's no need for healing anything. But that's not normally the case, right? And maybe we're generally functioning in life. Maybe we have jobs that we're good at. Maybe we have great families. But maybe I'm stuck in my own habits. Maybe I'm entrapped by certain behaviors that I know are not good for me, and yet it's hard for me to break that. Maybe I'm struggling with certain behavioral issues like anger outbursts or not being able to get out of bed sometimes or having excessive restlessness or anxiety, right? This can be indicators that we need to take certain steps to heal it. And one thing I really love this quote that goes, we can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. It's Albert Einstein. So, and sometimes we feel like we're trying to solve this problem from the resources that we currently have, but we have to seek something else. And I'm not saying it has to be a therapist, but maybe it's a book, maybe it's certain courses we can take. Just even sitting with yourself. I think we don't sit with ourselves enough with our emotions to really see if can I process that myself, or maybe there's something deeper that I'm just not able to tackle right now. And that, I think, a question for every single person separately. We just have to get very honest with ourselves because a lot of times our minds can be very tricky in how we interpret information, how we view ourselves. I don't know if you ever had this experience of, I have this all the time, right? And I think, again, healing is ongoing process. When I look back and suddenly I become aware of certain behavior that I'm doing, that's not good. But before that, I had no idea that I was doing something that's not good because we're so used to our habits, even dysfunctional habits, unhealthy habits, that we don't question it. And then there's a point in life where suddenly we may get that awareness and say, hmm, you know what? I don't think what I'm doing is right. Or when you see it in someone else and then you analyze and it's like, wait a second, I'm actually doing the same thing. And so I think getting honest with ourselves and becoming more aware of our patterns. I always say this quote too, is if everything is pissing you off, the problem is you as well, right? So we have to always see how we contribute to certain issues that we have and be brutally honest, authentic, as you say, right? With whether this is okay or I'm just trying to justify my own behavior that's not good. And I think it's a process for everybody. Awareness doesn't come specifically when I say, okay, now I want to be aware of all of my unhealthy tendencies. It doesn't work like that. It comes in chubby ways. We get these pieces of clarity sometimes. We just have to be open to receive that and say, okay, I thought I'm doing good, but maybe I'm not the best that I can be. So what's the next step for me to evolve further to the new version of myself?
Yeah, if you meet an asshole on the street, you met one asshole, but if you meet an asshole for the entire day, then, you're probably the asshole, right? Um,
Absolutely.
you spoke about honesty, and that's a really big problem. Even for me. there are certain things that, again, I did in that relationship that I'm not proud of. And it's really difficult to be honest with
Mhm.
yourself and say, I apologize for swearing so much so early on, but like to say, you fucked up, right? What
Yeah.
do you think is holding people back from that? Is it the shame? Is it the guilt? Is it the recognition that they are not as perfect as they think they are? Because I feel like if you ask anybody on the street if they are perfect or their highest idealized version of themselves, the answer is most likely no. But in an
Mhm.
ironic way, they're also not being honest with themselves to achieve that perfect idealized version of themselves. And then in a more ironic way, they know exactly what they want to achieve the highest
Mhm.
idealized perfect version of themselves. How do we battle with this honesty that we're just not meta aware of?
So first thing I invite people to look at as that we all have survival instincts and defense mechanisms, and I bring a lot of spirituality and mental health for myself, right? But mental health includes the ego part of ourselves. And the ego is a very fragile thing, even though it's very empowered in certain ways, right? Because when we function and we learn a lot of different defense mechanisms, a lot of different ways to navigate stresses and, life's journeys. Breakup is one of the major stresses in life, for instance, when we're going through that. So one thing is our ego does not want to see us as something imperfect, something not correct, even though we know it, but deep inside we try and justify certain behaviors. And I think the point is if we're looking at certain behavior being repeated in our pattern, whether it's in one relationship, maybe it's in a few relationship, we have to learn to say, you know what, that's actually holding me back. It's not that I'm going to be less than, but it's more about to become more off if I address this right now. If I look at the stand and say, okay, can this be different for me? And if it is, how it's going to impact me? What's going to be the end result of that if I change this little thing? I always talk about there's three stages before we start a transformation. First is self-awareness. And that self-awareness, again, is getting honest and saying, and if I have to justify something, that's probably not good. If we sit there and I think, well, I've done that in a relationship, but they really pushed me and they did this and that happened. That's probably we're just avoiding our responsibility in that. Because in every conflict, if we look at any conflict in any relationship, there's always two people that are at fault. It's never that the conflict happened that this person is at fault. Sometimes we're tolerating things and that's our fault and staying in relationships that maybe not good for us. So I think understanding and taking responsibility and accountability for everything we do in life in general, good and bad, allows us to really grasp the power that we have. Because if my behavior is a consequence of someone else's actions, then I will have to wait for that person to change for me to shift that. But as I say, okay, I've been trapped in this relationship even though I was not, if let's say a lot of women struggle with abusive relationships and they think, okay, I was staying in this relationship for that long, but it was not me. I still tried to make it work. Yes, but you knew what's going on. You know that you shouldn't be treated that way. And maybe it's because of our upbringing. The reasons can be different, right? Codependency, maybe some other qualities that we may have. But naturally, we want to say, okay, you know what? I stayed there for too long. I cannot allow myself to be in that relationship anymore, right? Or analyzing backwards, saying, okay, I missed a lot of red flags and I don't know why I stayed. So that's going to be awareness. First, we have to become aware of that tendency and say, okay, I know what I'm doing is not right. Then there is willingness. I can be aware. And so when we know better, we have to do better. But if we don't do better, we constantly will feel this scratch, this itch in our mind, right? Because I'm remaining and I'm doing the same thing. And we can see that a lot in substance use per se. People know certain substances are not good for them, but they're not able to stop. They know it. I know it's killing me. I worked in rehab for about 4 years, and that's where you see a lot of that. People can be claiming, I'm done with this, never again. I know it's the worst thing. And then the next day they go and they use, right? It's not because they're incapable of doing that, but it's very hard. So willingness is say, okay, you know what? I want to change that. I want to do something different with this. And the third one is being ready to change because I can be willing all I want. But if I'm not ready to go through that discomfort and change myself entirely, because with my new habits, everything will be shifting. It's not just the mental shift, it's physiological shift. And that's how trauma is stored. It's in our physiology. All of the things about ourselves that are keeping us trapped in that cage are in our physiology. And so change our physiology, it's like breaking addiction to yourself. And it's a hard journey. And our ego, because it functions in the same routine, the same habit, we're creatures of habit. Even unhealthy habits are still comfort zone, even though they're killing us. So the idea is to be getting out of that completely, right? And becoming more aware of the new self but knowing that it's going to be a shaky road. I will have to go through a lot of turbulence in order to get to the new self. But if I continue to support myself mentally and that readiness comes, I don't care what it costs me, I'm going in. I'm doing whatever I have to do. And I also know it's going to be temporary because nothing in this world lasts. So I know it's going to be a temporary. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm ready because that hard will bring me to a better version of myself. And I have no other choice. I'm not giving myself a choice. I'm not living that anymore. I have to change. So even if it's longer than I expect or more difficult than I expect, I'm still going to go through it and nobody can change me otherwise, like, or change my opinion on this.
Good Lord. You're speaking to my soul right now. So, awareness, willingness, and readiness.
Yeah.
Isn't there a step before this on fear? What if I'm too scared to do this? Because I'm always thinking about, I really want a daughter. My mom didn't end up, she had two sons. She really wanted a daughter. And so I want to have a daughter to kind of give her a granddaughter. And
Mhm.
so I'm always thinking about my daughter because I'm very aware that, the, how do you say this? I think still women need to be a little bit more careful and a little bit more attentive to the reality of the world, I guess is the best way to
Yeah.
put that. I have to tell my daughter how she's going to be treated in certain ways, in certain situations and circumstances, and I want to make her prepared for that and be proactive rather than reactive. So
Mhm.
she's strong in that way. I just want to double click on this archetype of women staying in abusive relationships. What precisely
Yeah.
is that? Is it a fear of leaving? Is it a fear of wanting to be aware? Because it's not just being aware that the relationship is abusive. There's a meta awareness of I am participating in self harm by staying here.
Mhm.
And I think by staying there, there's also an abdication of willingness. Even though
Mhm.
they're always ready to leave, there's just that thing in the back. Anyway, I don't want to psychoanalyze that entire archetype. I'd
Yeah.
rather have you tell me. But
Yeah.
what precisely is that fear? And is it fear or something else?
It can be a very different ways to look at it. I think there can be different reasons for that. But one thing that I uh, naturally come to when we're thinking about abusive relationship, well, number one, like we discussed, it can be a pattern, right? It can be an addiction in a certain way because we're used to, if we think about the cave people, right? When we were back in the days when we lived in caves, you can't leave your tribe. You have to stay there for your survival because it's unsafe to go somewhere else. And we keep forgetting that we have this mechanism instilled in us for generations and generations and generations that don't allow us to make different choices because inside of ourselves we're going to be unsafe if I walk away. And sometimes the comfort also, we are not just addicted to substances, we're addicted to our chemical cocktail in our brain because anything that we're going through, any emotions we experience on regular basis become our comfort, become our habit, right? And if something shifts, if let's say I'm thinking about freedom and that looks enticing to me, but I'm like, but it's scary because it's unknown. I can be outside of that because it's safer to remain here. If we think about tribal life, I mean, even if it's abusive, which probably it was, you can't walk out because you can be dead. So again, we're staying, it's just biological wiring. Another thing we have to look at as conditioning of a girl or a woman, but when she's a little girl in her family. And oftentimes, if we let me explain how trauma works a little bit so that will bring a better picture. When we experience something, when we're watching a scary movie, when we experience something like a breakup or some scene that can be really, really intense, it's not just a mental process. We don't just get scared mentally, right? We have the whole experience of it with emotions and sensations. We get scared, we have these goosebumps, we have heart beating very fast, we have blood flow going up and down, right? So we begin to have that. Every time we experience good or bad, our neurons fire and wire together, creating neural connection in our body and neuroplasticity in our brain. When we have that underneath sensations and emotions, we also have negative belief about ourselves. Maybe it's I'm unsafe or I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not important. And oftentimes, when we're growing up, and it's not always connected to maltreatment from the parent side, sometimes we just naturally look at situations and we encode those beliefs. But from that point on, we don't have access from, we have top brain and bottom brain. Top brain, when we rationalize things, we make decisions. I can look at my life and say, I don't know why I'm so anxious right now. Everything is fine. When we're triggered, it's not triggering our top brain, it's not triggering our mental space, it's triggering our physiology. And when that's created, there is no logic in there. And also, there's no connection. to our top brain as well. So we're not even able to understand why we're triggered in certain ways because it's outside of our conscious awareness. When we're as kids and we're developing these connections in our bodies that are negative, right? It's a negative neural network with negative belief underneath. So we don't know that we have that belief about ourselves. But then all of the thoughts and every experience will be looked at through this lens that we created. So when I'm looking at, let's say I'm going to school after having a very difficult childhood, I'm looking through, I'm unsafe, I'm unlovable, I'm unimportant. How lucky, how great, or how ready I am to go and start this communication with these children, or go and participate in this activity, or take on, this new role at the school. If I feel like I'm unlovable, I'm not important, I'm inadequate, I'm not going to do that. So those experiences impact every single step of our lives in the future if we don't solve it. And then we also don't look at good guys per se. We start attracting something that we feel we deserve. And oftentimes we're going to remain in relationships that we've been conditioned to believe that that's normal. And I know a lot of clients, because again, I work with a lot of very serious traumatic situations and scenarios, so to say. And people are really remaining in those relationships because they don't think they deserve anything better. But that's not conscious. It's literally subconscious. Don't call it subconscious, but it's physiological. It's this entrapment by our neural networks that we've created over the years. So oftentimes, again, we get into that and then we begin to struggle, but it feels normal because that's how life works. That's how I encoded these experiences.
Just to double tap on something that you
Yeah.
backtracked on, why don't you want to say, don't say subconscious?
Because it's really subconscious, it's more mental, I would say, that's in the back of our head, but it's more physiological. So a lot of things are physiological in nature because I feel like when we look at humans, we go to the doctor to get a pill for a certain medical condition. We're going to church to get spiritual needs met. We're going to therapy for mental health. But we're one system. Everything is interrelated. And understanding that we have to, as a practitioner, I have to look at every area of the human in order to understand where the problem is. And so subconscious part of it, yeah, we can call it that, but it's more physiological response. It's unconscious, I would say. Unconscious, I think, would be a better way to put it because, again, it lives in the body, but it's not really something out there. So I think a lot of people who do EMDR, I know they refrain from calling it subconscious. It's more, again, unconscious physiological response.
Sure, I absolutely agree. I think the biggest missed opportunity, I guess is the best way to put it, with traditional healthcare is that they're
Mhm.
very iatrogenic. It's a medicine to combat a medicine to combat a medicine, and you die from 20 medicines, right? Um, we talked about mental health and spirituality very briefly. How does spiritual, first of all, what is spirituality? That feels like a very hippy dippy thing to most people. When people, I've experienced this as well because I'm very spiritual. I have tattoos, all Mother Gaia and everything, like Mother Aya, all of these things. Like I'm with you on that. But I've seen a lot of people roll their eyes. They don't want anything to do with this. This is just hippy dippy stuff. It's not real. There's no science backing this, even though there wasn't science backing gravity and it still existed. But we don't have to go there. Um, what is spirituality in that way? How do you explain to people that they're already spiritual in some way without even realizing that? And then I can ask that later
Yeah.
questions.
I actually had clients like that who then opened up when they measured their own spirituality on a scale from 0 to 10. They're like, it's a 0. I said, wait a second. I'm like, you're doing so much good for others. Like, you're doing things without recognition. Like, you are spiritual. And the person always, I think the major obstacle is connecting spirituality with religion. And that's where the problem is because a lot of people, and again, sometimes or in certain cases, it can be a great tool as well. Religion can be beautiful, it can be spiritual, but in a lot of ways through the history as well, that was a way to manipulate others as well. So there's always going to be these two sides to that. And sometimes people think about spirituality as something belonging to a certain religion or certain group of people. Spirituality may not anything to do with that at all. And sometimes we have to look at, again, how do I treat myself? How do I treat others? How do I treat the world around me? Right. And again, when people disagree, that's not my job to convince anybody. And I think they're missing out if they don't have that tool. I love spirituality and bringing that to, especially working with trauma, because if I look at the trauma that I have from a perspective of a human, I'm going to be the victim of this. But if I look at it from the perspective of something greater, I see, you know what, there's probably a reason for that because we know this phrase, right? Everything's happening for a reason, but we don't give it enough credit when things are not going right. Then we're struggling. If something is happening that's bad, we're like, well, what reason is here? But if we look at it from a broader perspective, we begin to realize that there can be a beautiful gift. Again, some experiences we can say, oh my God, I'm so glad I've had that because some instances are horrible. I've seen the worst side of human beings in my work and continue to see that and assist people to grow through this experience. But there's always that point where they come to realization that I'm changing for the better after going through this and processing that and kind of leaving it as a part of my history, but not a part of my story. And as humans, when we look at situations, we often take that as a part of our story. And we go around talking to people about what hurts because naturally that's what we do. If we have something that hurts, we talk about that primarily because it's on top of our head, so to say. And so spirituality is a great tool to reconnect with not only your mind, because mind is influenced by a lot of, you know, TV media. We have too much information. And I like how I have a great teacher that taught me so much about spirituality, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he talks about the age of information in form, right? In a form, or inspiration, in spirit, inspired, being aligned with that. And we are putting in our mind a lot of information that afterwards everybody will have a proof or facts to support their opinion. But if I have a knowing, there is knowledge. Oh, I can say this, I've read that. Great. I have a knowing. I don't need to prove myself to anybody. If you don't believe it, great. The exit is right there. I don't need your validation about my stance. And more often than not, I don't even go there if people begin to challenge me on spiritual stuff. There's no point of talking about this. If you are not kind of understanding or not open to it, then there's nothing. I mean, I'm not going to be sitting here trying to prove myself. It's going against me because spirituality put in words limits it as well. It's the experience itself when we connect. And we can't even describe it properly because, again, if I try to, you've mentioned about Mother Aya. So I assume I've been in this journey for so long with ayahuasca as well. How can you bring this information, what you're learning from that experience, to people who have never done that? There's no point. I'm saying, okay, I've been the energy that, creates planets. People are looking at me like, are you okay? Are you feeling great? Are you sure you're, in the field of mental health? I'm like, yes, I am, because that experience is so beautiful. But if I talk about it to people who are not able to receive or ready to receive, not everybody's ready just yet. We have to be mindful who we bring this information to. And so I would never, never, and I'm always very open with my clients when we start. I say I do utilize a lot of spirituality with mental health, but we don't have to go that route if it's something that you're not comfortable with. I'm absolutely fine. I can deliver the same spiritual insights from the sense of mental health without challenging anybody or making them uncomfortable, because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to serve and meet people where they are, even though it's hard sometimes. Again, you can see potential and then people are not doing the work. So, but it's for everybody. Everybody has their own timing and their own journey.
Just to answer your question, I haven't done the ayahuasca ceremony yet, but
Mm.
I did hear about Mother Aya in Paul Rosalie's book, Mother of God. And I was just like, oh, if people are already interacting with this entity,
Oh
dimension,
my gosh, she's so big. Yeah.
like, why not just interact with her even before? People
Yeah.
are saying that when they meet her, when they're on the ayahuasca journey, that it felt like they've been meeting somebody that they've known their entire life.
Hmm.
And, I don't know if it's selfish or not. I don't think it's greedy, but when I started interacting with her, just again speaking like I'm speaking to you now, but just speaking to her, I felt like there was a shift in my life where like this spiritual world opened up just a little bit more and I was able to understand things and I was able to, I call them gifts, but they're just signals. I was able to understand so much more. But yeah, I understand what you mean when you say, because I also have a hesitancy even bringing this up because, I want to talk to people who are in space mining and NASA and all these, like the academic stuff. But as soon as you bring up, as you were saying, like, I'm the energy that was building planets, people are like, are you a mental health practitioner or patient, right? It's the same. It's like, I don't know how to get out of that. I would love your just if we want to take a little tangent. How do you talk to people like that? Because you said that not that you said this, but what I heard is that you're not going to necessarily engage with people or try to prove to them. Is
Yeah.
there a way to guide people on that or offer them questions? I'm not trying to change another person's perspective. That's not my job. Your experience is
Yeah.
your experience. Your life is your life. I'm not attached to that. You do you. But if I can be a leader and offer you some type of olive branch, what would that look like?
I'm usually speaking in the insights I'm receiving. And when you said that you're receiving this like signals, maybe downloads would even feel right for you as well. That we receive those downloads, right? That are very beautiful, that help us to update to a new version. Like Alisa 2.0, or whoever is 2.0 or 3.0, we go through many, many versions of ourselves. I don't jump in it. Number one, it's the presence itself, because I really like to practice what I preach. Every single thing that I'm giving to people, I've done it, I went through it, I've learned about it, I felt the benefits. It may not work for everybody, but it will work in cases when we're trying to work it, right? Because it doesn't work if you don't work it. We have to work something for a while to get the benefits out of it. But about, again, spirituality and sacred medicine, number one, it's not for everybody. So I also do not want to spread something that may not be good for that specific person. But I'm more of bringing my truth and my experience. And we're very telepathic in nature. Yes, we're far away when we're, in the cyberspace, we get stuck in phones. It's contamination of our space, right? Not just mine, but the whole entire being. Our vibration begins to be different. And again, everything in this world vibrates and we know it, we feel it, right? If somebody walks into the room and we don't like them right away and they didn't do anything wrong, right? We sense that energy. And when I'm bringing certain insights because I've lived them and I felt them, and when I deliver that, I allow people to experience a little bit of that energetic shift and they feel it in me. And I've gotten certain people that say, "Oh, I want the peace that you have." And I can be going crazy over something in my mind, but they're not feeling the mind. They're feeling the energy of that connection that we have. People naturally, when they're ready, the teacher will appear. So if it's the time for them to get more information on, let's say, this practice, they will get to the point to ask me that. Or they will say, "Well, what have you done?" They will be asking questions that will allow me to know, okay, they're ready to learn a little more about this specific thing. So I'm going to always provide it for them, that information that they're seeking. But I'm not normally just going around talking about it because some people just will never understand. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't hold any grudge. I don't try to convince them again to change their opinion of that. People are entitled of their opinion, even their opinion about me, but it doesn't change who I am. So who I am is who I am, and I know it. But a lot of us often rely on what people think of us, and that's where the problem is. Because even when I begin to know who I am, and I think beginning of the spiritual journey is very important because we just start, we're not there yet fully to really, connect with that and grasp it and be connected when we need it in the most difficult situations. So somebody giving us negative feedback can make us question our reality. So I think a lot of work on a spiritual level has to come in solitude or only with those people that will resonate and understand. And like you said about reading certain literature, that was my healing journey. I've read a lot of books in order to change this. And just like I said, we can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. We need to get more information, new mind, but we need to be very mindful and intentional what information I'm seeking and what resources I'm going for, because there's a lot of people that also don't have the best interests of you in their heart, right? With books, usually you can find something that'll be like, "Oh, that's interesting. Let me give it a try." And the moment you start and you just continue going, consistency is the key. You will be changing naturally and you will be unfolding more and more. And certain things will resonate and they will, for me, it was like a puzzle piece with spirituality because I was brought up in Christianity, which I respect. I respect every religion and I do still prayers from my religion as well, but I'm not practicing as I'm supposed to. When people talk about being a sinner, well, obviously, but we don't have to be going around calling ourselves sinners every time. What good is going to do to us, right? So I think again, certain strategies just don't align with me particularly, and certain questions that I had, they weren't answered. So I began to put this puzzle piece by myself of what it is for me, what do I believe is the truth, right? That we're trying to seek, and it's an experience and journey, but without forcing it onto ourselves or others. I think it's the gentle way, allowance, and receiving, again, spending time with yourself, receiving those downloads. You have the answers. So if the person just spends time with themselves, they will begin to hear this truth that's not inspired by mind or informed by mind rather, but inspired by the spirit that we all are.
Today I was asking Mother Gaia for a sign that everything is going to be okay. Because again, like the breakup really took a toll on me. And the downloader, the inner voice I was hearing was, it will come. Like it will come today. And it's so interesting how literally everything you were saying towards the beginning of the podcast when you were talking about relationships and maybe the person just isn't right for you, but you're still staying in such. That was exactly what I needed to hear. So number one, thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. Um, it comes to the question of, and something that we touched on before, when you're in a good space and you're getting the signs, everything is great. When you're in a bad space and you don't feel like you're getting in the signs, you can really lose faith in spirituality. It almost feels like there's a blockage. It almost feels like even the spiritual dimension is against you.
Mhm.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with being in a bad place and not being, Steve Jobs said that you can only connect the dots looking back. How do you know that everything happens for a reason when you've interacted with a bad situation and you're in a bad circumstance?
Yeah.
You're not past it, you're in it.
Yeah. Good question, because I actually dealt with a few this year. This year was rocky. I think we have to come back to the spiritual principles. And again, when you said when you're losing faith, right? I think those people who have faith, you can't lose it because there's no basis for it. Faith doesn't is not built on any proof, on fact. Yeah, looking back, we can connect the dots. But faith itself is practiced when everything is not okay. And then the only thing that has to remain, it's not even hope, right? Because a lot of people say, well, I still have hope. Hope is when everything is already bad, but then there's maybe this probability that miraculously it's going to change. Faith is everything is really bad right now, but I know that it's going to come. Something will come out of it. I know, I just don't see it yet, but I have to get there to see it. And so staying true to this knowing, again, remembering that even if it feels like that, it's not necessarily that. And trusting, just like when we were in our mother's womb, right? When we were growing for 9 months, nobody was interfering with this process. And also this information is from Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I love this. And nobody did anything. Our moms did not try to create a liver. We have not been there trying to create fingertips. Everything showed up. So we trusted the universe for 9 months out of the time. That's a long time for humans, that everything will show up. And in most cases, again, there are those that maybe not as perfect by the human design or conditions that we think, right? The standard of humans, but everybody is perfect in their own way because they're all creation of the source. And so just like our kidneys showed up, our heart showed up, our toes showed up, we have to trust that the resolution will show up as well. In what form? Sometimes we have to release the expectation of what I want out of it and try to stop forcing it and try to just be in it and go facing every single emotion, not trying to resist it or numb it down, because that's how negative tendencies continue to appear, right? Drinking, some other ways that people can numb it as well. But really being with that, because nothing lasts, even the emotions we have at this moment. If I allow myself to feel and just go through this experience, it's going to pass. Nothing lasts. We'll forget about that when it's something negative. So that's where faith comes upon. Say, okay, I don't know how it's going to be resolved. I don't know who was creating the script of my life, but I have faith that something will show up. I will hear that. Maybe not right now, but I know it's gonna be there. And that's where faith is. Believing, just like for 9 months, everything showed up for us inside the womb, it's gonna show up for us in life. But unfortunately, when we come out of there, we're like, okay, great job. I'll take it from here. I got it. I know better. We don't know better. And there's a plan that we got to follow. And that's where practices, just like we shower daily, just like we like to work out often, because we know neither of those will last, right? Shower doesn't last a week, so we have to do it every single day. Spirituality must take the same time. And spirituality, I'm not talking about going to church or praying. It's meditating, it's disconnecting from the mind, allowing yourself to center in the energy that we are, rather than believing in the stories we hear in our head. And having that faith that, just like in medical field, which is always my strong card when somebody is questioning me about facts and believing in something, placebo effect in medical field. You can treat your disease or a problem with taking sugar pill. If you believe that sugar pill is a medication, and you suddenly start feeling better, and it's not even a medication. You start healing yourself with that belief. That's what faith is, having that belief in something greater that naturally will bring you to a better result. But again, that comes with that. Believe it before you see it. And that's a hard part for a lot of people.
Did you ever lose faith in your life? Sorry, no, that's a bad question because you said you don't lose faith. Did you ever come close to relinquishing
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Questioning the questioning why, like what, I guess, I don't know why me. I mean, earlier it was more intense, I think, and naturally when we're just, when I moved to the United States when I was just 18 years old. I moved by myself. I had a very rough transition to another continent from my homeland, and I went through a lot of difficult experiences. There, I didn't have the faith I have now. But again, after from 2017, that's where the journey with spirituality was just skyrocketing for me after the medicine work and a lot of other things that I started to practice as well. And I think now it's harder for me to get close to losing that. But even this year, I've had a moment where I was like, you guys are against me. Like, I don't know what you want. I don't know why you're doing that to me. I don't deserve this. And afterwards, when a little bit time has passed, and I just sit with it. This time around, I was sitting a lot with all of these emotions. That's why I know how hard it is. And that's why when we want to escape, but we have to sit with it. But when it came to a certain point, I came back, I'm gonna say that, like energetically. I'm like, okay, I know now. Thank you. And they're just meeting me with open arms, because they know I'm not gonna, hold this grudge against them forever. And that eventually we see why. It was just that right now it's not the time to understand why yet. And we have to learn something through the struggle, through this pain. Because if I learn this pain, nothing can take me down. Because I know how to sit with it and take it. And then I know it's gonna be okay afterwards.
You keep saying energy. I don't know what that is. Like it doesn't mean obviously I'm taking a hostile stance, but it doesn't mean anything to
Yeah.
me because energy is like, is it ATP? Like energy, is it like the thing that powers my car?
Yeah.
What is energy? I can't measure it.
Do you believe in electricity?
I do.
Why? You can see it. The actual energy, you can see it. We see it as a result with the lamps, right? But the actual substance is completely, it's clear. There is no, it's invisible to us, and yet it exists. The same with us. We can actually measure that. We can measure our electric impulse if we connect ourselves to device, right? Different device, we can see what we are. And if we stand with our feet barefoot on the grass, it suddenly even spikes much higher. And there are multiple videos on this right now when kids even standing and measuring how, their energy goes in the body. It's whatever is moving this device, just like a thought, right? We can say, okay, do you believe in the thought? But if we open the brain, we're not going to find any thought, right? Where it's just the energy. But again, it's all about the experience of it. How do you feel inside this costume? Because this is a costume. This costume will remain. It's going to go into the ground or being burned by the end of it when the energy is out. We become like a stone, right? Because if we look at a table, a piece of stone, clothing, we're made of the same thing. But yet we can go, walk, feel, talk, right? That's the energy. That's not really us, because otherwise we'll be laying down like a piece of clothing without the ability to move.
What is the soul then? Just energy or
The
something
same
else?
thing. I mean, we can look at water, and the water can be Wasser, aqua, vada, right? There's different names to that, but it doesn't change the substance.
Right. Interesting.
We can't get wet from the word water. We can only feel it when we touch it, but we can call it different things, just like people talk about different gods. It doesn't matter what you call it. There's some higher power, some energy out there that created it all. We can call it different names.
Just switching gears very quickly. So
Mhm.
I recently, not recently, but um, there's a book that I try not to read. It's called The Rape of Nanking, and
Mm.
it's about the forgotten Holocaust that Imperial Japan did in World War II. Just for the people that don't know, and
Mhm.
that book is utterly terrifying. It's disgusting. It's terrifying. It introduces you to not horrors. It's too little of a word, but just stuff
Yeah.
that you never knew that people were capable of. When you listen to private detectives or just detectives in general talk about the cases that they're on sometimes, the retired ones at least, you hear some really crazy stuff, and you continuously. There's a great channel actually called I think Soft White Underbelly, which details this.
Mhm.
Usually, we're always surprised, and I'm sure you are, at the lengths and depths of human craziness, if that's a
Yeah.
interesting way to put it. And you're more intimate and familiar with this because you're working with people who have suffered from these things and maybe even who are
Yeah.
committing these things. How do you not lose your faith in humanity? It's like when you hear of the things that people are going through or that people are doing,
Yeah.
how do you not look at the thing that we are and really just say we are doomed?
Yeah. I think that number one, most people are good than bad. That's number one. So humanity doesn't is not defined by those experiences that make the world shake, right? But I also think those experiences are very important, and we all have our darkness and our light. We have our negative tendencies, maybe based on being abused in the past. Some people take that and not find the gift in it, but become hostile instead. And I think there's always a purpose for them to grow through it and develop as well. But those experiences that are negative, they, I would say the word should is the right way, but I think they're there to help somebody else to find purpose in healing that part of humanity, or working, establishing, volunteering, or going and helping the victims of certain situations. I think everything is perfect in our life, and it sounds again weird, but so is our desire to work on this and change it. And I think sometimes by hearing this, we may discover our own calling to go and act against something. But if we're just using it to talk bad about other people, and we're not trying to find a cause for us to go and do something more positive, like something about it, if we have this compulsion, feel compelled to go and fix it, then we're on the right track. And unfortunately, we have to have those things because otherwise we're not going to grow. Neither those people who are going through that, neither us as those people who want to make that shift in the world, like you've said with the book, right? Wanting to make that shift in the world to help people change as well. We may not change the world itself, but even if I change, not I, even if one person is changing with the information I bring, I'm winning. I'm already winning. There is nothing else. And that person is going to create a ripple effect. So we're going to see more changes coming from that person because they will spread the word, right? And I think that's the idea for us to always share that light and always share those insights, even through the worst experiences, whether ours or what we're looking at. Because I know a lot of equally powerful, in a good way, people that made a lot of impact, positive impact in this world. And if we only hunt in, if we only look at those negative things, we don't see the miracles that happen. With the book Men's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, right? I'm sure you're familiar. It's an amazing story. And what came out of it, he, after going through Holocaust, he came out with the art piece that changed the world with logotherapy, finding meaning through a situation like a Holocaust. There's nothing worse than that. There's nothing worse than that. So we got to always pay attention to listening to stories where people made it, even though they had to face that. Because we will always be justified for having even bad emotions or opinions about those things. Yes, but also there's great gift that can come afterwards. And I think looking at the fact that I know that something much better can come out of the worst experiences, that's what helps me to keep faith in humanity. And also that I know I'm doing my best as a human, trying to be good to other humans and doing, again, trying to bring that impact into the world. I believe in myself. And I know that I'm doing my best. And I know other people are capable of that, because if I'm capable of that, others can for sure do the same thing. We just have to, again, allow ourselves to find that mission and calling rather than finding faults.
You dislodged yourself from giving people help. You said that if I can help one person, then you said if I can, or then you step back and said if one
Mhm.
person finds help from something, I say, why did you do
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, I don't take credit for somebody's success or failure, because it's your job to take information and run with it, or say it doesn't work for me. We have free will, right? That's our choice. I've been asked once in a podcast as well. They say, well, somebody said about me being a healer. And I'm like, well, am I a healer if somebody doesn't heal? So I always give the credit to the person in front of me. But the greatest reward for me is to see the transformation in my presence. When I see that, when I'm there to witness, when people get something, they have this aha moment, or they do the work, they come back and like, oh my God, what you gave me was so amazing. I'm like, you've got this. You did it. It has nothing to do with me. I provided the information. Yes, I'm assisting. I'm helping you. I'm giving you the map, right? You can take it or leave it. You can say, I'm not taking this map. Let me leave it in your office. I don't need it.
This might be more of a difficult question, or the question might not mean anything at this moment, but
Mm.
across all of your clients, what has been the biggest repeated and common blinder that they suffer from?
Mm. Oh, I think it's hard to get out of again the victim state, and I'm not saying that in I've been a victim for a long time after my own traumas. It took me a while to get out of that. That's why I know that sometimes we need this time to get through the stage in order to say I'm sick and tired of being in that space. I don't want to be here anymore. And the time is different for everybody. So I think blaming others for what happened to us, which is absolutely again justified and validated, but it's not helping in any way. And I think that's the major thing to overcome this blame game when we're trying to assign, to somebody in our lives the role of you created this problem for me and I'm never going to recover. And that's the issue, right? But if I say, okay, I'm going to learn from it. I really love the quote, I never lose, I either win or learn. And if we look at it from that perspective, again, certain situations can be harder to navigate than others, but not necessarily we're not learning anything from it. We have to find something that I can learn from that and overcome certain uncertainties, maybe not 100%, but I definitely can make a difference in my life, even with the situations that like chronic illness or medical injury, which is it's very hard clients to work with because again, they're suffering a lot. And to bring realization to them that we have pain and we're dealing with pain, but suffering is a layer outside of that. And suffering is optional. We have to deal with pain. But the suffering, if I get stuck in this negative loop of feeling sorry for myself for what happened, rather than working on finding solution, easier said than done. Again, when you're dealing with a lot of, despair or a lot of, intensity and pain, it's very hard to see anything positive per se, or not even positive, insightful, I would say, insightful in this. But so is the more difficult the journey, the bigger the gift, the bigger the insight, the bigger the uplift, the more evolved you're going to become through it. But again, not everybody came to this earth to evolve. Some people are here to show us what's going to happen if we don't. Sometimes we have to look at it that way as well, that not everybody will be changing in this lifetime. And if you believe in reincarnation, right, sometimes we have to learn the lessons. I know my past life, so it's a little crazy. And I know why I've suffered a lot this year, I mean, this life, because of my past experiences. I was fortunate enough to get that knowing, I guess, about my past life and connect it to what's going on in this lifetime. We just have to sometimes go through it and understand that, yeah, I'm paying off some debts that I've had, karmic debts, or I have to learn some certain lessons. So I think getting out of that, space, that victim state and blame game with others, it's the biggest kind of blindfold.
I think we're going to need to get you back on the program to talk about the past lives and do a part two. But um, as a potential like last question for this
Yes.
body of topic, what is the first step in spirituality? If somebody wanted to listen to this, and do you, as a sub question, do you just become spiritual? What is that? Is it a switch they flick on? Can I just say I'm spiritual and now I am spiritual? Like, how does that work? And what is the first step in being spiritual? When they identify as a spiritual person, are they just going to get the downloads from Mother Aya? Is that how it works? Are they just tapping into something? What
Yeah.
what are how do your frequencies open in that way?
Yeah, I think it starts with, especially if we get stuck first with mental programs, is to change our beliefs and how we view life as well. Because again, we function, everything we look at or everything we experience, it's still based on our core beliefs. And so we are not becoming spiritual, we're becoming aware that we are spiritual. So it's not about becoming, it's about becoming aware that we already are. And that's the idea. If you are moving, you are spiritual, you have spirit in there. You have the energy from the spirit, just like a drop of water, like drop of the rain from the ocean. We're part of the ocean, we're just in different places, different times. And so I think becoming, again, turning off the mind, or like processing first and turning off the mind to meditation, different practices like sound healing, anything that will get you out of your mind, anything that will help you go inwards and to really become more aware. Somatic work, I do a lot of somatic work with people as well, is to learn again. Anytime we experience something, how do you feel? Like, do you tense? Do you have some anxiety or pressures in your body? Becoming more aware and working with that, being more in your body to experience that rather than being in the mind and spiraling out. And so I think it's going to be different for everybody where they start, but I think trying different ways of different spiritual practices, if you will, or meditation practices, mindfulness practices. That can be a very good beginning, especially if we're very disconnected at this time. But also, again, just starting point is to know you are already spiritual, but you're just not aware of it. And that awareness is the experience. It's not mind kind of generated idea. It's the experience of it. And once you feel it, once you know it, you cannot unknow it. You will know it forever. But if you practice more, you will feel it more. If you don't practice more, you're not going to feel it as much. And being consistent, just like consistent with brushing your teeth or taking a shower, we have to sit with ourselves every single day. Meditation, breath work, whatever is going to get you to this different space and state of being.
If you had a magic wand and could solve one problem in the world, what would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Mm. Ooh, that's a tricky question. Let me think. Actually, I never thought of that. I don't know. I can't say. I don't know. I can't think of one thing because I think everything is important to have for our evolution. If it's there, that means it has to be there. Solving, there's the problem is that every desire, and I've learned that as well through some of the shamanic practices, if shamanic practices in general, every desire that we have, whatever we want to receive or what we want to manifest, will always has another side to it of the story. So even if I say I want all the kids to have home, they may have a home that's not good for them. So again, there can be always those things that we have to consider when we're trying to wish upon the world something else. But definitely, again, I think maybe better understanding of medical problems that we may have and better awareness, maybe having, I wouldn't say cures, but remedies that we can use for to treat certain problems that we have that can be, intermediate kind of, not full extent we're all healthy, but again, just learning, because again, even any sickness brings a lot of insights and growth. So I can't really answer like if there's one specific thing. I don't think even if I get that one, I don't think I will be able to solve it because I would not want to, eradicate something that has a place to be for a reason that humans don't know, right? Because it's always there for us to kind of grow through and become better in saving people from this or, navigating difficult scenarios and situations.
For the record, Alyssa dodged the question, so we'll just move on. No, I'm just kidding. Um, as a last question, what gives you hope in the world?
I have faith in the world, not hope. I think hope is a negative connotation. So I would say I have faith that there's a reason behind it. And I don't know what that reason is. I don't think I'm meant to know about the world situation. But I do think a lot of people do better. And I think a lot of people are awakening to different, gifts that we all have and purpose and having a mission that we're here to fulfill. So awakening of different people, I think that's what gives me that faith that we are on the right track and there are more people who want more and who want to be more. And I think that's what gives me some more hope and faith.
Beautiful. Alyssa, thank you so much for this conversation. Where can we find you online to support you?
I have Instagram, Alisa_art. I have my website, www.since.life. And I can always also, if anybody wants a free consultation, I'll be available for those people. So, yeah.
Fantastic. All those links will be in the description. I want to personally thank you so much for today because you really did help me with everything that I'm going through. So thank you so much for being the person that you are. Thank you for being such a peaceful energy. I really resonated with you. And thank you for being brilliant. Really appreciate the conversation today.
I'm just your reflection, but thank you for having me over, and it was my honor.